submission is read, you have 10 minutes. Do allow us time for questions, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. So my name is Jordan Williams. With me is my colleague Connor Malloy, who joined me and my staff in various legs on our 42 event roadshow across the country, of which many MPs here obviously attended. So the Taxpayers Union has clearly been a leading force in opposition to these three water reforms. First and foremost, we're obviously not against some form of amalgamation or reforms to water services, but as per our submission, there's very clearly here a yes minister type situation where something must be done, this is something, and so the government argues that this must be done, and that is what we're rejecting. Our key concerns are the higher water costs that three waters will inevitably result in, first and foremost, the increased bureaucracy, the removal of local control, and the decoupling of democratic accountability for these water assets, which our hundreds of thousands of members and supporters have paid for through their rates. I want to make two comments, though, or 2 points in relation to comments today, because I've ad nauseum talked about those 4 key messages of the higher water costs, etc. But the first is around the process in which the Select Committee has run this submission. We achieved, if I can make a correction to our written submission, we actually achieved not 55,000, but more than 65,000 submissions at stop3waters.nz. There were games played by Madam Chair or this committee in relation to not accepting emailed submissions, forcing us to print and deliver these 65,000 voice submissions. But the incredible arrogance we have seen to be notified by officials that those submissions have not even been read. We have offered the Select Committee to run software over it to dig out the unique submissions, of which there are many. We've had no response to that. And the more than 8,600 individuals that have requested to present orally to the submission, for which you have not followed up. I note with disappointment that the Speaker just prior appeared to be someone who hadn't even made a submission and was not even commenting on the governance structure of this Three Waters Bill, rather simply appearing to be there as a soft puppet to support water reform for which there is no opposition. Now, I put to you that those 8,600 and something people that have in good faith made a submission to the Select Committee ought to have these submissions read and at least approached, and if possible, being able to submit rather than the 10 minutes that we have been allocated. Now, we offered to work with the Select Committee Secretariat to communicate with those people. That hasn't been followed up. The only follow-up we had was at 3 or 4 o'clock on a Thursday. We were asked to select 10 people to present at 9 a.m. the next day. Now, I put to you that is not covering yourself with the best process, and that I asked the Select Committee to reconsider that and at the very minimum read the submissions of the good, hard-working New Zealanders who have paid for these assets that you were taking out of their control, and at the minimum get your officials to summarise those unique submissions, because these aren't form submissions. We don't work like that. These are submissions that have been tailored by individuals. So that's the first one. The second point I want to make is around honesty in this debate. And you'll see, Madam Chair, that there is a legal opinion appended to our submission, whereby we asked a law firm to assess the Minister's claims, the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance and the Minister promoting this bill, that if the claims around ownership were made in a private sector capacity, would that be unlawful under the Fair Trading Act and securities regulation? And the short answer is it absolutely would. If Nanaia Mahuta made the claims that she is making in trade, she would be a crook. And whilst she is not in trade, she is not a crook.
Yeah.
She would be, but for them.
Point of order.
Point of order, I don't think it's appropriate for anyone to be called a crook in this forum.
Yeah, can you please clarify, is that your matter of opinion?
I'll reword it directly from the QC, that the claim's false, misleading and deceptive, that the government's effrontery is breathtaking in relation to the calculation to deceive parliamentarians and the public. I apologise for using shorthand for that claim. Now, the short point is that we should expect of our parliamentarians and of ministers to be honest with the public and what they are doing. And the claims around ownership have been dishonest. Now, what we weren't expecting is there is perhaps some liability, criminal liability, on these claims being repeated by local government New Zealand and those in professional engagements on the ministerial working group. And I'm happy to go into those details should anyone wish to, but I'm also conscious that I should leave time for questions, Madam Chair. But the full opinion is appended to our submission.
Thank you for your submission. Just in the interest of natural justice, I'd like to clarify that the process that this committee followed was made as a decision of the committee and not of the officials, and so we will leave the officials out of this debate. And there were reasons for those decisions, which members may wish to question on or not. But also in the interest of time, I'd like to hand the floor to Simon Court for a question and then Simon Watts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Jordan, and to the Taxpayers Union for your excellent submission. You can be assured that your concerns will be taken into account as we prepare a final report on this bill back to the government. The opposition shares your concerns. I just want to come back to cost. You've raised this in your submission. We've heard from Aotearoa District Council just now that the WIC's assessment of their likely cost to fix their three waters over 30 years is $300 million. Their current asset value is $98 million, which they believe WIC's assumes they'll need to replace their assets 3 times in 30 years. Do you think that we should have any confidence at all in the economic modelling behind this reform proposal?
As you know, Treasury has difficulty forecasting out 3 or 4 years. The idea that you can project CapEx costs out for 50 years is bananas. I thought it was ironic that a few months ago I saw an interview with a Minister of the Crown on this very subject, and she referred to peer-reviewed costings out of Scottish Water and some of the consultancies working for the government. What she didn't mention is that those peer reviews slammed those costings, and I rely heavily here on the excellent work by Andreas and Castalia for the Communities for Local Democracy. I would submit that the councils are the experts on this area. Yes, we have a shared interest in good quality and affordable infrastructure. What I'm not seeing here in my background is regulatory economic law and control of natural monopolies, is that I'm not seeing anything here that is preventing the sort of gold plating that engineers would love, but actually it'll be the Taxpayers Union ratepayers that pay for it. And there is a trade-off.
Simon Watts' question.
Yeah, thank you very much for your submission. Look, we've had reports from local councils in light of, in effect, misleading information or financial information being provided, that they have subsequently provided what they deem accurate information, but it hasn't been listened to or, in effect, hasn't been on reported. I mean, what do you take from those reports? And that's more than one, it's multiple.
Yeah, well, we've focused more on because what we think is most egregious, and that is around false claims on what the bill actually does. And this sort of, renaming a cat a dog in relation to what ownership is. I understand that there's lots of problems around the finances. I'll be frank, we haven't properly engaged with the specifics of each of the individual councils, so I know that work's being done elsewhere. But I'll simply come back to, no one, having been on the road for some months on this particular subject, and speaking to literally and sharing the stage with both MPs and Labour and Green Party councillors around the country. So no one's been able to answer how can you have a reform that is supposedly going to save our supporters money, but at the same time is going to create what was a ratchet clause in the bill, so no one's pay goes down. I'm not sure where that efficiency is. If someone wants to point it out, I am all ears. But in terms of misrepresentation and dishonesty, we have focused on what we think is the most egregious, which is a clearly a calculated attempt to deceive. I just want to, though.
I'm sorry, but we are out of time. Thank you for the point well made. And also, just for the sake of allegations around criminal liability, as the chair, I'm taking those as your personal opinion so that we can keep them on the record. Thank you.
Well, sorry, they're not. I was referring to advice on those matters.
And that they have been presented as opinion. Thank you very much for your submission, for answering.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Can we go to the next submitted, please? I'm just being very careful legally about claims that have been made about criminal liability that could. Madam Chair, that was a direct quote.
Yeah, he didn't make the claim.
From a court judgment. My ruling will stand because with defamation law.
You can't make a ruling against the Select Committee Chair.
Well,
you can determine the process, but not make a ruling. The problem here is you've just said that it goes in the record is the presenter's personal opinion. It wasn't presented to us as personal opinion. It was presented as a piece of evidence provided to the committee
yes.
from a QC.
And you're correct, I should have said opinion, and the reason I say that is because there were allegations of criminal liability that were attributable to particular MPs and ministers, and I just wanted to safeguard the process here. But I'm happy to take advice, and I'm actually going to...
Sorry, Madam Chair, I was never suggesting that the Minister has broken the law.
So,
it would be if she was in trade.
I'm just going to take point of order from Duncan.
Well, look, I don't think there's anything to do here, right? You've simply noted
Sorry,
that it was an
should have said
opinion,
noted.
and Mr. Brownlee didn't like it, but there's no ruling as such. It's just it was an opinion in a letter noted.
Well, that's right. There is no ruling.
Yeah, thank you.
And that was my point.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you for
good.
correcting me, and thank you for that
Thank you,
clarification, and thank you.